Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse. We are excited to finally be back, especially to be returning with some Star Wars content, as the second season of The Bad Batch has come out, starting off what seems to be a very exciting year for Star Wars, as we will also be getting Mandalorian Season 3, the Ahsoka series, as well as possibly some others like Visions or Acolyte. Starting off 2023 with the first two episodes of Season 2 of The Bad Batch. Beginning the first episode off on an unspecified tropical planet where Echo, Wrecker, and Hunter are running along the beaches away from some crab-like creatures that are also unspecified, as this planet and these creatures have not been seen before to my knowledge. While Wrecker, Hunter, and Echo attempt to escape from these creatures, Tech and Omega are back on the ship, the Marauder, waiting for the team and keeping watch. We learn that Omega has been studying different types of Imperial vessels and ships, something that Tech has obviously been helping her with, and I am sure that we will see each member of the Bad Batch help teach her their respective skills, one by one, as she begins to get older and more involved with their missions, as we can see in these first two episodes. Their ship gets caught up with some of the crab creatures, and Omega starts using her Zygerian energy bow that she got back in the first season of the show. Energy bows were also used occasionally by the Night Sisters, as we have seen in the Clone Wars series a few times. This one that Omega is using is just of different design and from a different planet and people. While Omega uses her bow and gets back on the ship, we can see that she has clearly been training in combat and is a much better combatant than she used to be. Hunter, Echo, and Wrecker just barely escape the crab-like creatures and get back onto the ship with the cargo that they were bringing, as they head back to Ord Mantell to deliver it to Sid. So we know that from the last time that we have seen the Batch, up until now, they have been taking jobs from Sid and working with her still. When they get back to Sid's place, as they enter the bar, we can see that a Weequay and an Ithorian are playing some sabacc, and in the background there are some arcade games that resemble something that you would see at a casino, one of them displaying a Phase 2 clone helmet on it. Walking into Sid's room and greeting her, on the side we can see the helmet of a clone pilot, and once they meet with Sid again, they also meet one of her friends, a pirate known as Fee. And knowing of pirates, it would be cool to see Fee possibly having a connection or working with the main pirate that we all know and love from the Clone Wars series, Hondo Ohnaka. We have not seen him in a very long time, and it would be great to see him finally return. Fee talks about how this clone force does not look like the usual ones, and she points out their differences and their mutations, noting how big Wrecker is and how Hunter has face tattoos and whatnot. And while she speaks with the Batch in the background on the wall, we can see yet another helmet, which is just a regular Phase 2 clone helmet, which is of course the same type of helmet and armor that the clones wear right now. She mentions that there is another job for them and tells Wrecker to carry the crate back outside for her. While they walk out, we once again see the main attraction in this room that we also saw in the first season, a Mandalorian helmet hanging on the wall, but this isn't an ordinary Mando helmet, this is the prototype Boba Fett helmet. Sid briefs a mission to them and tells them that they will be heading to Sereno and the Sereno Castle to be exact, which is of course where Count Dooku lived and mainly operated out of, a location that we saw a handful of times during the Clone Wars. They must go there to loot Dooku's war chest, which is now being confiscated by the Empire, something that the Emperor may have ordered personally, as Dooku may possibly have some important artifacts that Sidious desires, such as holocrons, Jedi and Sith alike, but also the amount of credits and riches that the Count had, as he was born of royalty. The Empire may end up using these credits and riches to move on from the clone forces and on to increasing their numbers with stormtroopers. At first, Hunter declines the job as it's too much of a risk, but we see right after that the rest of the team is speaking with Sid again about the job, while Hunter and Omega study shuttles again, specifically studying a Lambda class Imperial shuttle, the type of shuttle that high-ranking officials in the Empire would be transported in, such as Tarkin and Vader. Overhearing the rest of the team, Hunter walks over and decides decides to go on the mission after Sid explains that the Empire will eventually go to Ord Mantell and shut her operations down, which will cause the batch to have no way to gather credits for themselves and find freedom, which makes Hunter think of Omega and how doing this mission can help her future, as he clearly views her as a sort of daughter of his own and knows that he has to look after her and protect her. As they head to Sereno, Echo talks to Hunter and explains to him that hiding is not the way that they should be living, and they are only living the way that they are, all because of Omega, blaming everything on her, but Hunter says it is for her safety and her safety alone. Omega of course overhears this and gets upset as she holds Lula, which used to be Wrecker's stuffed animal. Arriving on Sereno, the team and us see that the entire city has been practically destroyed and that the Empire did the exact same thing here that they also did to Tapoca City on Camino in the first season of the show. The war chest is starting to be moved and escorted by the Empire as it holds tons of high-valued things like credits, jewels, and possibly artifacts as well, that Dooku had collected and obtained throughout his many years while conquering different planets. Hunter separates from the team as the rest head into a crate to gather some of the war chest loot, while Hunter sets up explosives on the escort shuttles. Omega finds a crate of jewels and credits and asks them how they are different from Dooku, because he also took and stole these different treasures from the worlds that he conquered, which is basically what they are doing right now. But they tell her they are different because they have different intentions to use these credits and jewels for. This new clone captain and his forces start to catch on to what's going on, causing Hunter to set off the explosion while Wrecker begins to move the boxes of riches outside of these crates, which in turn ends up separating him and Hunter from the rest of the group, as the Empire close everything down and send the ship to leave, as Tech, Echo, and Omega are trapped inside. On its way to leave orbit and head into hyperspace, Hunter and Wrecker try to get onto the ship to help, but this is not a good idea and they end up jumping off and landing on top of the Sereno Castle and Dooku's palace. As the Empire's clone forces close in on them, they head inside to the exact same room that we saw many times in the Clone Wars, Dooku's headquarters, where we saw him face the Night Sisters that tried to assassinate him and where he was cursed by Mother Talzin. Everybody on the team is now trapped and being closed in on by the Empire's forces as Echo, Tech, and Omega plan to get out in an escape pod, but the Empire ends up ejecting all of them, preventing their escape. While Hunter and Wrecker are trapped inside Dooku's palace, Hunter realizes that there is a lift right below them, which we saw Dooku had plenty of these hidden lifts in his palace in the Clone Wars as well. The lift ends up getting jammed, but Wrecker improvises and uses his enhanced strength to jump on the top of the lift, causing it to open, and then both to fall further down into the palace. Omega's ship studying comes to save the day as she remembers that these types of ships have thrusters on all of the crates that are attached to them. So they improvise and use these crates as their new way of escape, disengaging all of them from the ship while Tech, Echo, and Omega are inside one of them. They begin crashing down to the planet's surface as the thrusters have not turned on yet, as Omega and the others grow in fear of what may happen if they do not turn on. Which is where this episode ends, and the second one picks right off from, as the crates fall from the sky with Omega, Tech, and Echo in one of them. Hunter and Wrecker descend down into the destruction that was the city of Sereno. Tech, Echo, and Omega's crate comes crashing down, stops, and lands, or so they think. As their crate tips over after they communicate with Hunter, a box ends up falling onto Tech's leg and it fractures his femur bone. Echo climbs out of the crate and realizes that they still have not landed yet, so they must get out of there quickly. Omega and Echo pulling Tech up from the cliff and leaving behind the war chest to hide, as the Empire's forces will be closing in soon enough. Hunter and Wrecker are making their way through the ruins of the city in a stealthy manner as two LAAT gunships fly overhead. Omega, Tech, and Echo make their way through the forest as someone watches them through the trees. Omega notices this and they confront their stalker, Romar, but he is only an elderly man, someone that has been surviving the destruction of the city city and the Empire's takeover, and someone that is willing to help them out. Hunter and Wrecker watch over Captain Wilco and his forces as they set up a perimeter around them. Figuring out a plan to get out of there, they spot some AAT separatist tanks in the wreckage of the city, which they plan to hopefully power up, allowing them to escape safely. As Wrecker removes a B-1 battle droid from one of these tanks, both him and Hunter note that neither of their tanks can power up. Romar takes Omega, Tech, and Echo to his home and mentions that there are other survivors out there as well. They talk to Romar and he mentions Dooku and how he ruled over Sereno and how corrupt he really was, saying that he also took from his own people rather than just the planets that he had conquered. As Omega watches over the old man, he ends up giving her what we all know as a kaleidoscope. She asks him if there are any jewels inside of it, but he says that it is only reflected glass. It is a tool to bring happiness, something Romar says is worth more than any jewel or amount of credits, reminiscing of how everything has been taken from him and his people, not only by the Empire but also Dooku in the past. Romar brings up a Serenian archive as it contains the history of his people. While Echo is out checking for patrols, Tech helps the old man power the thing back up, and you can see that the archive sort of has these same sort of designs on it that we see inside of Dooku's castle, with the green sort of glass. While this is going on, Omega eyes Romar's rappelling rope and of course is planning on returning to the war chest to complete the mission, as she feels guilty after she heard what Echo said about her. With the tanks being no good, Wrecker tells Hunter to grab him a battery as he has a plan. He ends up using this battery to power up the tank's literal cannon as they blast their way out of there with their new firepower after Wilco and his forces discovered them. Omega sneaks off back to the war chest to complete the mission and get some of Dooku's riches. Echo ends up following her out there as some of the Empire's clones close in on the crate on their speeder bikes. Echo gets cornered and is forced to rappel down into the crate with Omega, where she has gathered some of the treasure to bring back with them and complete the mission. As the clones outside of the war chest set up an E-Web turret outside, as Tech sneaks through the forest with his fractured femur to help Tech and Omega, and he ends up taking out all of the clones there even while he is injured, but he ends up passing out after. Hunter and Wrecker make it back to the Marauder and head to pick up the rest of the team and get out of there. The crate still being on the cliffside causes it to begin slowly dropping even more, and Omega ends up losing the bag of jewels that she had went back and gathered, but she insists on getting them once again because she heard what Echo said about her and she feels really bad. But he ends up telling her to just forget about it as their safety matters more, escaping the crate just in time as it falls even further down the cliff as an LAAT gunship closes in on all of them and begins firing on them. Tech uses the turret that the other clone set up to shoot the ship down, while Romar risks his own life to help Echo and Omega back up to them. As Hunter and Wrecker arrive with their ride out of there, they all get on the ship and Romar tosses the kaleidoscope back to Omega and tells her to remember what he told her. As Tech asks him what he will do, he tells them that he is a survivor and runs off and watches as the Bad Batch fly off and escape Sereno. And it is possible that this kaleidoscope may have more to it and may possibly help them get that payday that they really need, as they lost the war chest, but we will have to wait and see about that, I suppose. Echo and Omega make up, and he tells her that he didn't mean what he said before and that he would do it all over again, saving her to have her be a part of their team and family. Captain Wilco and Admiral Rampart meet together as Rampart questions Wilco's report on this heist, as Wilco reported that Clone Force 99, being the Bad Batch of course, was involved with this heist. Rampart claims that this is inaccurate as the Bad Batch were killed in the destruction of Depoka City on Kamino, which is the operation and attack that he himself watched over. Wilco says that he is wrong as he saw them himself. So Rampart explains that a new report needs to be made, one that does not mention Clone Force 99, one that is falsely written in Rampart's favor, as he explains that if Tarkin found out about Rampart's failure to terminate the Bad Batch, it would not go well for him. But Wilco refuses to falsify a report, so Rampart takes out his blaster and tells them that he will do it himself then and eliminates Captain Wilco. Wilco was obviously a good clone working for the wrong side, as we saw a glimpse of that in this episode as well. He cared about his men and getting the mission done, as well as the honesty of his reports rather than corruption. Rampart doing this and killing clones for not engaging with corruption will most likely lead to even more clones rebelling and refusing to take orders from those in the Empire. Something that we can also notice in these first 2 episodes together is that the Bad Batch have changed the design on their armor to a more orange design rather than the red one that they had in the first season, further signifying their independence and them pushing further away from those that they used to work with. We can also see that the Bad Batch always uses stun on their weapons, showing that they still care for their brothers and do not wish to harm them. Overall, these were 2 pretty fun and exciting episodes, and I enjoyed them both. I thought that they were a fun way of starting off the second season, and animated Star Wars always gets better and better, it seems. I personally enjoyed the first episode a bit more than the second, although the ending of the second episode will lead to further plot points down the line. I think that I would rate the first episode an 8 out of 10 and the second one a 6 or 7 out of 10. I hope you all enjoyed the first 2 episodes of season 2 of The Bad Batch, but make sure to let us know your thoughts on them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown, don't forget to give it a like, and with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.